Welcome everyone, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and today we are going to teach you how to paint this adorable painting inspired by Nightmare Before Christmas. Alright, so we do have a wonderful painting kit that has all the supplies that you need to create this. I've also made this really easy and fun template for y'all, so let's go ahead and talk about that first. Alright, so I have worked ahead, but I will go ahead and go over everything that I do for that process. So the traceable is this, and then we have the transfer paper here, and then we have our canvas. So the very first thing that I will do is I will make sure that I tape down just on the top of the canvas. I'm going to go ahead and tape 2 strips of tape right here. Your kit also has the tape. And I make sure the dull gray side faces up and the shiny black side faces the canvas. That will make the transfer happen. So I just center this. I make sure that the canvas is completely covered. Then I place this at the top, also centered, and just at the top. The reason why I leave all of this open and free is so that as we're tracing, I can check my work and make sure that I get all of the shapes placed in. Now, important little helpful hints here are that you want to make sure that you've got plenty of room on this side to where this entire moon is showing. So you do want to make sure that it's not going off the edge. So I do make sure that I have this total curvature showing here. And for the most part, we've got the guideline on the base that you can just line up with the base of the canvas. So that should fit just right for you. And we have a little bit of over drawing on this side to where this can, you can see how it runs off a little bit, runs over. That's okay. The main thing you want to pay attention to is make sure you get this entire curve showing in the design. A little bit of a distance here you can see from the top of the canvas to here. Other than that, pretty simple on lineup. Then what we're going to have you do is take your pencil and you're going to go ahead and trace over every line that you see here. Something else that I do too, your eye can kind of play tricks on you with negative space, positive space. So let me see if I can get it in the light. Ah, there it is. I did go ahead and sketch into all of that positive black space in this image here so that I wouldn't get lost as to what was dropped out with white and what was black. So I do go ahead and do that so you don't lose sight of that and your eye doesn't get confused. And then there's so much of this that's pretty easy to read, so I just went ahead and did my black outline here. But for example, around this little area here, if you need to go ahead and sketch in more, you can actually sketch in the whole thing over the black just to be really secure with the whole process. Alright, so there we are, good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and lift off. And then we have washi tape with your kit, so it lifts off really easily. Okay, so your kit also comes with a permanent marker. I've got one around here somewhere, but basically a permanent marker will come with your kit. And I did go ahead and use that to go over all of the transfer work that we just did. I love that because it will bleed through the paint and you won't lose any of the hard work that you've done. So that's really going to help us out quite a bit here. So definitely recommend that. Beginners especially, but really all levels. I just feel like it's a huge, huge help. Alright, so we've got our little family of brushes here to help us paint. We've got our paint plate out. We've got our water. We've got our paint set here, really great paint. Let's talk about our little family of brushes. Alright, so we've got Mama, and then we have Little Buddy, and then we have Little Bit. Alright, and then I'm going to, I had to X out of my mail, or else it's going to keep dinging at me, and I don't want that. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with some really fun, bright colors that are happening back here in our beautiful glowing moon. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with some primary yellow. And with your brand new set of paints, you will have a little silver foil lining right up here at the top. You'll have to peel that off. All right, now let's also grab some cadmium yellow. Do a little bit of that. Sometimes a little bit of orange mixed in there too is really fun. We'll do a little dab of that. And if we want to make some sections of it even a little bit more variety, add a little bit more of a warmth of a glowing red. This is our Cadmium Red. So lots of fun colors to play with. And if you want to get really wild and crazy, we can also add some primary magenta. But mostly it will be our primary yellow. In fact, I'm going to grab a little bit more of that. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with our mama brush. Let's add a little bit of water here. Press that out. We want the brush just moist. We're going to grab some of that primary yellow, a little bit of the cadmium yellow. We're going to mix those two back and forth. And then we can go ahead and start to paint over the surface area here. And look at that. See how our line work is bleeding through? That is a beautiful thing. So we don't have to worry too much about intricate cut-in work here. We can be a little bit more free and relaxed with the process. And then later when you're done, you can always come back in after this dries and we can firm that up with either the permanent marker, which I recommend quite a bit just because it's easier to work with for those small details, but you can also paint that in with black paint too. All right, that's looking really beautiful. And in order to get a nice thick layer of paint on the flat side, you want to go ahead and turn that brush more over to the side. And see how you can work this in to where there's no negative space showing through with just white, and you can be really free with the process there, which is nice, very relaxed. Because if you had to just really work that in with a tiny brush, it could get really tiresome. So we want to make it fun and easy. You can kind of change up your texture a little bit here by doing a little cross stroke. By that I mean like little tiny X's just back and forth. Alright, very nice. So I'm going to go ahead and start to add in some of these warmer tones here in the background as well. So let's grab some of that orange that we talked about. And this is optional. You don't have to do this. If you like it just with the yellow, you can certainly do that. I'm going to lighten this up with some of that cadmium yellow. Crisscross this back and forth. Just want a little bit of warmer, darker glows here in the center of the moon. Now I'm going to grab a little bit more of our primary yellow. And we're going to come back and with more of that from the outside. Softly blend that in. Alright, really pretty. And then you can add in a little bit of that red and that primary magenta just right around the edge here. Do a little bit more here on this side too. Let's rinse out because I want to soften that up a little bit and work that back into the lighter shades. So, cleaned out my brush. My mom, we're going to go back in with some of these lighter tones. I'm going to come right back over the top with more of that bright, vibrant yellow. Cadmium yellow, primary yellow. Right. Beautiful. So we just need to let that set up and dry a little bit. Probably put out way too much of these darker colors, so oops. You can save your paint by securing it in airtight, like put a lot of plates on top and then rest some weight over it if you happen to have done that. Alright, so now let's go in for this big wave of color here. So we're going to use our primary cyan blue. And then let's go ahead and use some of our violet, which almost looks black, but that's a purple color. And I cleaned off my mama brush. Round and round and round. Let's go ahead and dry off again. And I'm going to go ahead, let's add just a little bit of white to this violet. That'll make that color more intense and vibrant. And so we're going to work this in here. Let's grab some primary cyan blue, work that in too. Get right next to that edge, using the flat line of the brush, just go right up against that curve. And we'll use this big brush as much as we can until we get into the really tiny areas. Just working back and forth here between the primary cyan blue. A little bit of this violet mixed in with just a teeny amount of the white. Oh, you know what? I forgot some negative space here with the moon. Oopsie. Boy, that's becoming really evident to me at this point. I'm like, what's supposed to go there? Oh, yeah. We'll get it. So we'll continue to work this into this little shape here. And pretty quick, I'm going to have to switch over to one of my sweet little kiddos. Whoops, went over the line. Let's grab some clean water, little buddy. Add some water, do a little cleanup here. And then just lift off. Perfect. That's a signal to me that I really need to switch to a smaller brush. I should listen. Okay, here we go. With your little buddy for just a minute here. And then grab a little bit for the very teeny tiny part at the very end. maybe we can get it all with little buddy. Oh, look at that. Alright, beautiful. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and work in all of this with those golden tones. So I need to come back in with a lot more of this primary yellow. Cadmium yellow. And we still have a little bit of orange. That'll be perfect. Gotta rinse out, Mama. A lot of paint left in here. So got her clean. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with my little bit brush, smallest brush we got here. Let's do a mix of the primary yellow, cadmium yellow, and we're going to do a little twist to get that thinned out and work that into that really tiny little section here. So again, this is a mix of primary yellow, cadmium yellow. We don't have that much of that small space to get into, but yeah, we did have a little bit. So we'll be able to switch over to a bigger Mama brush here in just a second. And if you have a little bit of transparency, then hold this brush more over to the side. Very helpful. Let's rinse out. And let's switch back to Mama. I use the line edge to work around that curve. Gonna add a little bit of orange in here too for that warmth that's coming in there. And work this all the way to the base. Hold the brush more like a pencil to do that line edge, and then hold the flat side of the brush parallel to the canvas when you're working in a large section there. Picked up a little bit of blue, so I don't want that. I'm going to rinse out again. Cleaned up, add more of that bright primary yellow and just work this in right over the top. And feather that out. Alright, I love it. Beautiful. Alright, next step we're just going to go in with some pure black right around the edge. So I've got a clean Mama. We're going to go into this black now, and we're going to work this into the background. Take it all the way around. Now as the black dries, sometimes you can see brush strokes or a little bit of transparency, so we do want to make sure and go over the larger flat portions of it with a little bit of a textural stroke to help feather it out. So I'm going to show you that here in a second. I'm just trying to get it all worked in around all the edges. So hold it like a pencil to do the line work around the edge for the cut in. Hold it flat side to the canvas. And then in these areas that are a bit larger, so I'm going to do a little cross stroke. I'm going to pick up more paint and then do a little cross stroke back and forth. Just kind of crisscross that. Feather out those brush strokes to where it has a nice texture when it dries. Alright, just like that. Alright, so now ideally what you want to do in this part, so my paint is still a little bit tacky. So I'm going to have to go ahead and paint mine on, because if I use a permanent marker too soon, it will actually, if a permanent marker hits wet paint, it'll just kill the permanent marker instantly. So you have to either just let it completely set up and dry and use your permanent marker to work all this in, which is pretty easy to do for beginners, or you can come in and paint with your little bit brush. Make sure and clean it off. We're going to twirl it into the paint here, and then we're just going to go ahead and paint into these little sections here. But again, to get a nice thin point, you want to twist the head of the brush into the paint just like that. That will load the brush up with that color, and then also twist it into a nice fine point. We are almost done with these beautiful people, the soulmates in Nightmare Before Christmas. Making her beautiful long hair. The silhouette process makes it really fun and easy. Now, there's some optional things you can do here if you want to do like just little bits of white accent. You can just using my little bit brush there. And then that completes it. That's our beautiful painting. So this has been so much fun. We so appreciate y'all joining us here today. And you can find everything that you need on our website, tipsyartist.com. We have all the supplies for this process. So y'all have fun celebrating. We look forward to seeing y'all again very soon. Much love to y'all. Toodles.